What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be going over managing inventory. As you're probably aware, there's a new IPI score limit of 500. It actually used to be 350, but Amazon has raised that to 500 for FBA sellers. In other words, it's more difficult for you to achieve the new IPI score, which is your Inventory Performance Index score. So what strategies should we be using in order to raise our IPI score and avoid any restrictions? Because Amazon's actually going to be implementing some restrictions from August 16th of this year for sellers who don't meet that 500 minimum. So the first thing I want to look at is what impacts our IPI score. Some of the things that impacted are excess inventory. So that's obviously when you have too much stock. The other one is in-stock inventory. And this is just making sure you have enough stock to avoid stockouts. And thirdly is stranded inventory. In other words, making sure you have purchasable products. You don't have products there that are stuck in the pipeline somehow. Perhaps you have inventory there on a closed listing, so it's not actually purchasable. That would be stranded inventory. So optimizing these three factors is going to boost your IPI. So on the one hand, you want to make sure you have enough stock to avoid going out of stock, but on the other, you want to make sure you're making enough sales to turn that inventory quick enough so you don't have excess inventory. And of course, that's a difficult balance to strike, but this is inventory management. That's what we're focusing on today. We're specifically going to look at how much should I be reordering and then when should I be reordering. There are actually 6 reasons why this is so critical. The first is, of course, it's going to allow you to achieve that IPI of 500 or greater. Second, you're going to avoid out of stock situations. And trust me, you want to avoid that. There's nothing worse than having a product you know would be selling and you just don't have the stock there at the warehouse. Third, you're going to retain all the keyword ranking that you've worked so hard for. Fourth, you're going to stop competitors from buying you out, or at the very least, taking advantage of your absence. 5, you're going to be able to capitalize on stockouts of your competitors. So when they run out of stock, all the sales they were making in conjunction with you, so you're sharing the market share, that suddenly becomes all yours. And 6th, you're going to be able to plan your cash flow much more effectively like this. And that's going to make your business much more scalable. And speaking of cash flow, we have in-depth tutorials in Amazon FBA Mastery on this specific thing, but I know not everyone's ready to just jump into a program, put money toward a program. So check out the links below. We've put 90 minutes of free training together for you. 0 risk to you. You're going to find value there. I also wanted to share this with you. These are some of the members of Just One Dime. These are actually Indian members. They're in India, selling on Amazon India. And you can see they are doing 15,000, probably much more now, 15,000 units per month. And there's absolutely no way to get to this level without proper inventory management. Imagine keeping that many products always in stock. Very difficult to achieve. So you want to have a process for this, and I hope this video gives that to you. So our first big question, how can I calculate how much to reorder? Well, taking something from Amazon's announcement, it looks like they want sellers to optimize for 3 months of inventory. Between 3 and 6 months is usually a good balance, because remember, after 6 months, you might get long-term storage fees. But let's use Amazon's 90 days, 3 months of inventory for this. It's actually a really simple calculation. Simply take your daily sales and times it out by 90 days. And that's going to give you how much inventory you need for 3 months. If you're doing this for 5 months, daily sales times 150 days. So if you see my example product here, this product is selling 10.7 times per day. So we simply take that number times by 90 if we're optimizing for 3 months. And you can see we come out with 963 units. That's how many we need for a 3-month sales cycle. So 1,000 units is actually a really good number to go with if you're selling about 10 units a day. Now, something relevant at this point I wanted to just note is that, of course, brand new ASINs temporarily do have a 200 unit limit in the US. So if you are a brand new ASIN, you're doing your very first product, you are going to have that restriction. But remember, this time will pass and then you're going to follow this type of procedure. In that case though, here are a couple options. Start with smaller quantities and then just build up your limits so you can build up to reordering 1,000. Another thing you can do is order as planned. So do 1,000 units, but you're going to do FBA and FBM. So you're also going to be shipping from your house or warehouse. Or thirdly, order as planned, say 1,000 units, but then you're also using a third-party prep center in that Amazon country. So you're fulfilling from Amazon and then you're ready from your prep center to send more inventory to Amazon as needed. And our second big question, and this one has a little bit more to it, but this is, how do I calculate when to reorder? So first of all, we're going to do it for normal sales period. So we're not looking at like a seasonal period, because of course that's going to change things. But in general, in your normal sales months, this is how you calculate it. So step one, you need two things here. One, you need to determine the average daily sales of your product. And two, you need to determine how much current inventory you have for that product in the warehouse. And step two, now that you have those pieces of info, you're going to use this equation on the left to work out your days left in inventory. So in our example here, you can see we have 1,792 units in inventory, and we are selling about 11 units a day, 10.7 units per day. We divide our total units by daily sales and we get 167 days left in inventory. After that, we're going to be out of stock. Step three, here, the first thing you're going to do is work out your total lead time. So you're going to take, how long does it take to manufacture my product? Plus, how long does it take to internationally ship my product? Put those together for a total lead time. In our example, manufacturing is 25 days, shipping by sea internationally is 30 days. So we have a 55-day lead time. And I'm just going to add 5 to that for contingency and call it a 60-day lead time. And lastly, most importantly, here you're going to actually calculate your last possible reorder point. You're going to do this by deducting your lead time from your days left in inventory. So here you can see we have 167 days left until we run out of stock. And we're going to minus our lead time from that, and we get 107 days. That makes sense because if at 107 days, our last possible reorder point, if we order on that day, in 60 days, our stock has arrived, and that is the day we would have run out at 167 days. So this is how you're going to calculate your last possible reorder point. And step number 4, now that you know in 107 days that's the last chance to reorder this product to stay in stock, what you're going to do is you're going to use a tool called Planet Calc, or a website called Planet Calc. We'll link it below. And here you're simply going to take today's date, if you're calculating this from today, and you're going to add 107 days to it. And all it's going to do is tell you what exact date is that. What exact date is 107 days from now? This way you can note this down and get ready for that reorder. So we were calculating this from August the 3rd of 2020, and you can see we get 18 November 2020. And here you want to deduct 2 weeks, about 14 days, simply for contingency. Things happen, things go wrong, there's delays, etc. We minus 2 weeks from that, and you can see we come out with the 4th of November 2020. That is the last day on which we want to reorder if we want to stay in stock. We can reorder before that, but not after that. So that's the easy one. But how do I calculate this for a seasonal period where maybe sales are going to go way up for a little bit or way down for a little bit? So step number 1, you're going to need a BSR tracker. This is included with a lot of Helium 10 subscriptions. Keeper is another very good one, but you need some type of BSR tracker. It looks like this, and it's going to show up on all listings just above the frequently bought together section you usually have there. And it indicates the BSR level of the product you're on. Is it up or down? And basically the lower your BSR, the more you're selling. So if that BSR comes way down, you know that product just started selling way more. If the BSR goes way up, then you know sales are slowing, etc. Now with that installed, before we move to step 2, I want you to view this like this. You're ordering a product right now, this year, 2020, just before Q4, but you want to know, how are things going to change in Q4? Is my product going to sell way more than I expect? That's what you're trying to do here to give this context. So in step 2, now that we have that installed, what we're going to do is go to an established competitor's listing, someone who's been there a while, someone a close competitor of us, but they've been there long. Maybe they have quite a few reviews. That's going to indicate that they've been there a long time. And we're going to look at their BSR on today's date, last year. We're looking at historical data to see, is there a trend there? And you can see in Q4, what happens to their BSR? Does it come way down or is it pretty stable? If it's stable, you know sales aren't going to change much. And then you can use the calculation we did before for a non-seasonal period. But if their BSR suddenly comes way down, they're selling more. How much more are they selling? That's what we want to work out so we can forecast sales and calculate our reorder point. So here you can see 2 examples. We just looked at 2 of our competitors for the same period last year on today's date. You can see here that the top one has no real change. The bottom one has a massive drop in BSR. Remember, the way you're going to be able to see a year back is by selecting all in the date range, or at least 365 days in the date range. That's how you're going to be able to see as far back as possible. And step 3, now that we have that kind of baseline, you need to establish, are you going to follow the same trend as them? One good way to do this is look at your sales today on this date, and then go look at their sales last year on the same date. And if those correlate and you feel that you're going to follow their trajectory, then we do need to adjust our reorder point based on, say, the BSR dropping. If we go with option 2 we looked at, if it's going to drop, then we need to follow that trajectory. We need to plan according to that trajectory. So if you are going to follow that trajectory, then you need to figure out what was the lowest BSR that competitor had during that peak period. And in our case here, it was 266. So a very, very low BSR, very close to the best seller, which would be number 1, but we were 266. And step number 4, okay, so now that we know BSR, how does that translate to sales? How can we know from that BSR, say 266 BSR, how many sales did they do on that day? How does BSR and sales correlate? One way to do this is you can use fbatoolkit.com, and you can then plug in the BSR to any one of the categories that is applicable. Say it's a pet product, then you're going to put 266 in pet supplies on that website. Another way you can do it is go find a competitor right now today who has that same BSR, and then use Jungle Scout or Helium 10, AMC Scout, any of your Chrome extensions to see, okay, at this BSR, how many sales are they doing? And that's also going to be very accurate. In fact, that method will probably be a bit more accurate than FBA Toolkit. You're just trying to see about how many sales is that BSR worth. And step 5, we're going to produce a sales forecast off of this data. And here's how you want to do this. So we were looking specifically at a drop in November and December. So from November 1 to January 1, for those 2 months, that's when this drop was stable and much lower. And so what we're going to do, now that we know how many sales that relates to, is we're going to bump the average daily sales just for that 2-month period. Then in the other areas where the BSR is more stable, we use our normal daily sales numbers. We're going to put all of that together, and it's just going to adjust. It's going to shorten our last possible reorder point. Now, in our case, generally, we sell 10 units a day on this product. Okay, so that's our normal BSR. But when this drop occurs for 2 months, it's 20 sales per day. That's what we've worked out from our research. So that's how we're going to be adjusting this example. And step 6 is we are going to calculate our new reorder point. So establish your seasonal period. For us, it's November 1 to January 1. And then what we're about to do is simply add these different periods together to get this last possible reorder point. So we're probably going to have some normal sales before, a lot of sales in this 2-month period, and then some normal sales afterwards. So this is how it's going to look on the left-hand side here. So what happens before the seasonal period, before this drop for 2 months? What happens just before then from the date we're calculating this for? So you can see we have about 11 sales per day, just like normal. And that happens for 10 days. And then the drop occurs. So that's what happens. And we sell 110 units before the seasonal drop occurs. Then during that 2 months, this drop in BSR and more sales, we have 20 sales per day then, and we have that for 60 days, 2 months. So we sell 1,200 units in that time. So if we pause for a moment, at this point, January 1, just after our seasonal spike, we've sold 1,310 units. Now that we know how many units we've sold by the end of the seasonal spike, we can actually deduct that from our total units to see, okay, how many do we have left after the seasonal period? And in this case, you can see we have 482 units left. So after the seasonal period, how many days of inventory do we have left? How long until we run out? And remember, now we're back to our normal sales of about 10.7, 11 sales a day. So we simply take 482 units, divided by 11 sales a day, and you can see we come out with 45 days. So we have 45 days left from January 1. And now we simply string those days together. So you can see we're going to add 10 days, remember, before the seasonal period starts, 60 days of seasonal period, and then we have 45 days of inventory left. So we add all of those together and it's 115 days. That is our days left in inventory. And if you remember the prior one where we did this for non-seasonal, that's really important for actually calculating our reorder point. So 115 days left of inventory. And step 7 is we're just going to run the normal calculation once again to get our last reorder point. So we're going to, of course, take our days left in inventory, which was 115, minus our lead time, which remember was 60 days, and we're going to get 55 days. That is the days until our last possible reorder point. And if we turn that into dates, you can see here we were calculating from 21 October 2020, and we add 55 days to that, and we get the 15th of December 2020. Then we're going to deduct a little bit of contingency time, just if things go wrong or get delayed, of 2 weeks. And so our last possible reorder point with a bit of contingency is the 1st of December 2020. And so you guys can see that really shortened that last possible reorder point because of the seasonal spike. So if you want to get really accurate, this is exactly how you can do it. I know lots of numbers in this one, but I hope it helps you guys and gives you a clear path, especially for the more complex ones where you really want to dig into this. You want to stay in stock. This is going to give you some actionable steps. If you did enjoy this, please drop us a like below. That means the world to us. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. Turn on those little bells. That way you'll get notifications every time we post a new video. And importantly, please leave a comment below. What is your lead time? I'd love to see everyone's lead times so we can see if your supplier is trying to pull a fast one. We can see what's the average, what can you really expect. But I would love to hear from you guys below, and I will see you in the next video.